Dr. Ramshankar, Assistant Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, IIMT College of Management, Greater Noida. Today, we are discussing a sampling process and methods in research. Sampling is a very important methods in your research. Sample is a very important tools in our academic communication and social research. So we are discussing a sampling process and methods. In before sampling process and methods, we study what is research. Before discussing sampling process, we discuss a research, research definition. What is research? Research plus search means search again and again. A systematic, logical, original contribution to knowledge is called research. Research not only a things, research not only a work. Research is a process. Process is a systematic process. A systematic, according to Redman and Maury, we called a systematized effort to gain new knowledge is called research. Research is a science and science is a research. So when we choose a topic related to tribals, then we remember these things like tribals inclusion, tribals, Adivasis. Tribals and Adivasis are synonyms. Jungles, hills, inaccessible, castes, subcastes, scheduled tribes, non-scheduled tribes, denotified tribes, nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes, Bhotia, Buksa, Jonsari, Razi, Tharu, which is added in 1950. 17 subcastes transferred to ST from SC in 2002, marginalized हैं, underdeveloped, away from social mainstream, derecognitions as tribes, wrongly placed in SCs, STs, OBCs, loss of affirmative action benefits, loss of identity, effort from development, and many things. Who we remember choose a tribal topics. So we discuss a sample. What is sample? Sample is a smaller representation of a large whole is called research. Here we present a photo who represent a sample. Sampling means selective from groups that you will actually collect data from in your research. Here first big circle is represent a population and second circle is represent a sample. Before sample we study what is a statistic. Here we present a picture who is well defined to population and sample. Here population parameters means value that describe a population is called parameters, and statistic a value that describe a sample size is called or sample is called statistics. Why sample? Sample empirical testing as the touchstone of the scientific methods to test hypotheses in the real world with actual observation. Observation come from a smaller set of individuals. Can these observation lead to reliable and valid conclusion only if selection process is accurate? Sampling is done because you usually cannot gather data from a large sample scale, a full population. Even in relatively small population, the data may be reliable. So, sample is necessary for research work. Population or sample? What is the difference between population and sample? A population is any well-defined set of units of analysis like peoples, countries, events, years is a whole population. A sample, by contrast, is any subset of units collected in some manners from the population. Some manners means like probability sampling, non-probability sampling. Due to consideration of time, money, and other cost, data collection is done from a sample and not an entire population. Information based on sample is less accurate or more subject to error than that based on entire population. We see here a image, population, sampling frame, and sample. Sample is a smaller representation of a large whole. The basics of sampling. Sampling is a process. Sample collect by a systematic process. Our whole process is called sampling. A study of public opinion and voting behavior always relate to sampling. Empirical findings that emerge from a sample apply to only that population, avoid the generalization. A sample of blood is subset of the all bloods. In human body, few grains of rice from the entire vessel of cooked rice. These are examples of basic samples. Term commonly used in sampling: population parameter, estimator, sample statistic elements. Here, population parameter is a quantification of certain population characteristics, average, difference between groups, etc. Estimators, a estimatic statistic based on sample observation which estimates the numerical values of the population parameter. Yes, sampling statistic estimator of a population attributes are calculated from sample data. And what is element? Element unit of analysis, individual states, speech, policies, social groups, political groups, ethical group. That's some important term related to sampling. Here we discuss stratum, a subgroup of population that share one or more characteristics like different elections. Sampling framework, population from which a sample is actually drawn is called sampling framework. It is to be representative of a population, and another term is sampling units. Entity listed in a sampling frame same as a element. Sample biased means incomplete or inappropriate sampling from leading to inaccurate inferences is called sampling biased. And another types of samples. What is the basic types? Two types, two basic types of sample, like probability and non-probability sample. Probability sample is one in which each element is in the total population has a known probability of being included in the sample. And second, other non-probability sample. Non-probability sample is one in which each element in the population has an unknown probability of being included in the sample. Probability sample are preferred to non-probability sample. Here, first probability sample is very basic, which is actually collect the accurate data from population. So here we discuss types of probability sampling. In first, major types of probability sampling, these are five types: simple random SRS, systematic samples means SS, stratified sample means stratified samples, cluster samples, telephonic samples. These are some basic probability samples. Simple random samples, SRS, each element has an equal chance of being selected. Each element has an equal chance being sampled or selection. List of all elements in the population must be available. Proper methods for selecting those elements. Two common methods of selecting a sample generator random numbers table manually or by computer. A basic we call a lottery methods by the lot methods. All elements tossed in a hat and elements are randomly drawn till the desired sample is reached. Lottery method, tippet method, box method is related to simple random. Here, simple random sampling formula given here. If P is equal to probability, then small n is the sample size and capital N is the population. The chance of getting a sample selected only once is given by, then formula is given here. P is equal to small n upon capital N. The chance of getting a sample selected more than once is formula given here. P is equal to 1 minus bracket 1 minus whole 1 by capital N power whole power n. Suppose a firm has 1000 employees in which 100 of them have to be selected from on-site work. All their names will be put in the basket to pull 100 names out of those. Now each employee has a equal chance of getting selected. Then the firm we can probability by formula. P is equal to small n upon capital N, 100 upon 1000 is equal to 10%, and the chance of selection of an employee more than once is equal to P is equal to 0.952, and cap, here we study in percentage 9.5%. Systematic sample. Systematic samples means uh, sample elements are selected from a list of predetermined number in a systematic manners, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Systematic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5, 10, 15. Only a systematic manner. This number is called the sampling interval, which is decided after a random start, simple random and other systematic samples is a very useful when sampling from a long list of population elements. Bias occur in a systematic sample if population elements are ranked according to the characteristics or pattern. A systematic sample is very important in our research. What are the steps to from a sample using the systematic samples techniques? Here are the steps of from a systematic samples. Step 1, step 2, step 3 and step 4. Step first, develop a defined structural audience to start working on the sampling aspects. Second is, as a researcher, figure out of ideal size of sample, how many people from the entire population to choose to be a part of sample. And third, once you decide the sample size, assign a number to every members. Means if we select in a classroom, every student have a number. Once you decide the sample size, assign a number of every members, every students of the sample. Define the interval of these samples. This will be the standard distance between the elements, means uh, second, fourth, sixth, eighth, 10th, 12th, etc. For example, the sample interval should be 10, which is the result of division of 5,000 whole population. Then n is equal to size of population, and 500 means n is equal to sample size. Then systematic sampling formula is interval capital N upon small n, 5,000 upon 500 is, and other in probability sampling stratified samples. Elements sharing one or more characteristics of group and elements are the selected from each population to the groups is representative of a total population is called stratified sampling. Sampling may be done either by simple randomization or systematic randomization or systematic sampling from each stratum. We select as a representative sample in stratified sampling. Stratified samples may be proportionate or disproportionate to related population. Proportionate sampling is the proportion to the size of population. Sample fraction, size of desired sample divided by the size of the population, and disproportionate sample is taken when a stratum is either under representative or over representations represented. Then we choose a disproportionate samples. Stratified sampling. Stratified sampling formula given here. A business research team has to survey 1,20,000 employees working in different US location of companies. The number of employees employed in various branches of the company is given here. If the total sample size is 12,000, the team can determine the sample size from each stratum subgroups using the following. Then the formula and chart is given here. Calculation the sample size for the Washington office, numbers of samples, simple size of Washington office. Similarly, we can find the sample size from all branch offices in US by given formula. Branch office, numbers of employee, branch office and sample size. This is given here. look and understand. The next, other sample like cluster samples. Cluster sample in short form CS. CS is used when there is no list of population is available. No list of population elements are available in uh, researcher. Sampling frame is divided into clusters of elements and listed as sampling units. Sampling is done from these sampling units. There may be multi-stage clustering samples, multi-stage units. The example, the list of all agricultural farms in the village or districts may not be easily available, but the list of village uh, or districts are generally available. In the case, every farm is sampling units and every village or districts is the cluster. Every village and every districts are cluster. In other sampling types of non-probability sampling. In the non-probability sampling, each element in the population has an unknown probability of selection. Non-probability sampling may be preferred over probability sampling when latter is too expensive or population is ill-defined. Non-probability sampling may be preferred when unusual cases may be more informative than representative ones. Non-probability samplings may be of different types like purposive, convenient, quota, snowball, and others. Non-probability sampling form we discuss purposive samples. The goal is to study a diverse and usually a limited number of observation. A limited number of observation. The purposive sampling, also known as judgmental, selective or subjective samplings, is a sampling technique in which researcher relies one on his or her own judgment when choosing a member of population to participate in the study. Convenience samples easily to researcher to select, good for exploratory research. Convenience samples and also known as availability samples, yeah, others means very easily sample collected by these samplings is a specific type of non-probability sampling methods that relies the data collection from the population members who are conveniently available in our research. And other sampling types, quota sampling. Elements are sampled proportionately in the purposive and convenient ways is called quota sampling. Quota samples method is an non-probability sampling and it can be defined as sampling methods of gathering representative data from a group. Application of quota sampling ensure that the sample group represents certain characteristics of population chosen by the researcher. And other types of non-probability samplings, snowball sampling. Represents are used to identify other person from inclusion in the samples useful to select difficult to locate population like third gender sample. If you want to know area your study is based on third gender, then we choose a snowball sampling because third gender is not available easily. So